So we pull in, and I just remember the nurse, my doctor, her head peeking through. She was like, "Hey, Carly." And I was like, wah, that moment again, like, angel, she's here. I felt so safe. I felt so happy. Like, I was so happy to see her. And they pull out the gurney. And again, so gentle. They were like, "Hey, Carly, we're going to just help you on here. Everyone's here for you." So, and I'm like, "Come on, let's go." And they were so gentle, so calm, so loving. And so we get on and we go through, and again, I still remember moments being, there was like a little bump, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, mama." There was like a tiny bump that the cart went over, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, mama." Like, just such different treatment. So they pull in the bed, and I just remember being like, "Get it, my underwear, get it off." I was like, "Cut it off." Like, I was just like, and she was like, "Okay, I think if you just lift your hips," like, she was like, "It's okay. We don't need to like cut all your clothes off. You just lift your hips." And she pulls the underwear off. And they were like, "Okay, he's crowning. Your baby's coming. He's here." And it was funny because I found out later, like, the ER staff was like waiting for us. Like, they hadn't had an ER delivery in like over 20 years. So everyone was like
Wow.
very excited. They had a sign for us. They gave us a baby blanket. They were so lovely, so sweet. But the people in the ER, later the doctor tells me, I had done a training with them. But ER staff, like, they're trained that like when they're screaming, something's wrong. And so she was telling them, "No, everything about this is right. The mother should be making these." So they were there like with a crash cart. They were like, what do we need to do?" And then I just remember laying there, and then this bright light was like shined at my vagina. It was like that big. And I just remember the doctor being like, "Okay, we don't need that." She turned off the light. She was like, "Thank you, guys. Thank you for your help." And she just closed the curtain so that it was then just like us and the nurse. And yeah, again, later I like talked to her about that, and she was like, "Yeah, in my head, she was like, ain't no baby coming out to that amount of like light. Like, that would just keep your child in." But yeah, I remember pushing, and then she was like, "Okay, let's try, like, why don't you turn over and lay on all fours with your butt towards me," like that. But she just like gently suggested, coached me through it. So I'm like on all fours, head down, and I like push. And they were just so patient. And they were all like, even the nurse was like, "Yeah, we can see his head, like, we see his hair." And I was like, "Why aren't we getting this child out?" Because I was like, hurt, like, in my head is go. And they were just like very loving. And I remember she was like, "Do you want to touch your baby's head?" And I was like, "No, I just want him out. I want to hold my baby. I don't want to feel him when he's like half in, half out." But she was like, "Okay." She's like, "All right, so one more time." And again, there was that feeling of, I literally can't do this one more. But I was like, ding, that means I got to do it one more. And then whoop, he came out, and immediately I turn over. They got my tank out. They put him right on my chest, skin to skin, and I just got to hold him, and they were just like lovingly taking care of everything else. And then even one of the nurses was like holding my legs up because they were like shaky and going crazy, so she was just like holding it. And then after we had got to like lovingly, they were asked my husband, "Do you want to cut the umbilical cord?" And he was like, "Yes, okay." So he did that. They waited. There's a period of time you wait to get the last bit through the cord. They did that. They let him clamp it. They let him cut it. And then immediately they were like, "Would you like to start breastfeeding?" And I was like, "Yes." I was never disconnected from my son, Liam, through the whole, like, skin to skin. And it was just like all these little lovely angels like working around us. Like, this time I felt like they were my blanket. Before it was like God was like, "I got you." This time it was like they got me. I felt very loved and protected by all of them. And then even when we went to breastfeed, the nurse was like holding his head up so I could just focus on the breast. And she just gently held his head because you're like really weak and like full after birth. And she, held his, like, I felt so supported. I felt so supported. And then they put bars up and rolled us into the room that then we were going to stay the next night. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was lovely. I felt, and then even the doctor, when I had asked something, or I said, like, "When you delivered him," and she said, "No, you delivered him. I just caught him." And that feels huge to me. She didn't take credit for something the whole world always gives the credit to. You deliver a baby. And she's, no, you delivered the baby. I was just there to catch him. Yeah.
Believe.
If yeah, the way they handled everything was so empowering and so loving and so like humanizing. It was funny then. This was during COVID as well. Technically, you were supposed to go into the hospital, get COVID tested, 45 minutes later, get your results, blah, blah, blah. Because we like skirted right into that ER, no intake work was done. So they were like, we need to do some paperwork. Who do you want? You get to choose one person to be with you through your birth. Who would you like that to be? Which my husband was there. And because of COVID, once one person's in, they have to stay in. So we were just joking. I was like, can I change that? Who I want there for my birth? It's like, it's so silly to do paperwork in reverse. And again, we weren't allowed to have visitors, but because of our first experience, we were like, we're good. We're good with that. They like Baha got to stay with me. In fact, he couldn't leave because of COVID. And they had, they've been like, use like adult diapers instead of having the mesh underwear and cotton. And it was so messy. It was like adult diapers were there. They had the witch hazel stuff to put in, like they had everything there for us. So having gone from nothing was there, I was just so appreciative and so shocked at what they kept providing me with. Like whenever you want to take a shower, I want to be here the first time you go to the toilet, just help you get there. But there was still privacy. There was still, so anyway, from the moment I got steel toed kicked in the vagina to birth was 1 hour.
Whoa.
Yeah. So basically I started active labor in the car. And so it was like 20 minutes. And then I think when we got to the hospital, 10 minutes later, he was out. So it was like, if I could choose, and again, I did tear, I think all the way, but she gave me like numbing stuff. And she was like, how's that feel? Are you okay? Like it was a very different experience. Like I hardly even remember the fact that I was stitched up. It didn't take that long. In fact, she was finishing up and they're like, another person needs you when you're ready. And she was like, okay, let me just finish up. And someone was like holding my legs again to support them because they were real like shaky and stuff. So yeah, I again like just love and appreciation and all those big feelings for sure. But and that's what I was like, oh, I did that. I can do that. Women do that. We don't, unless there's complications, like you're good. You well do it and you'll be fine. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It feels like such a like triumph story, like after the first one.
Yeah.
I think
yeah, it's like a comedy and a drama, or however, there's two very contrasting experiences for sure.